lasering this one and burn
Oh,
through it.
oh,
Oh,
nice. Show it off after. So, good morning, everyone. We're live Monday morning, catching up with Aaron and Tyler from First Responder Financial Freedom. So, morning, fellas.
good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yeah. So, how's everything been? How you guys been?
Good, busy. Waiting
Good.
for the baby to show up.
Oh, when is that supposed to be?
Anytime between now and 3 weeks from now.
All right. Cool. Cool. All right. So, yeah, this topic is brought to you by Aaron. He wanted to kind of talk about net worth, and I have no idea what direction you're looking at it from. Like, is it a positive or negative as something you're trying to strive for? So maybe you can start off on your thoughts on that.
Ooh, I love some controversy. So anytime I pose this question in one of these groups, what's more important, your net worth or your cash access? I always get mixed reviews, and then people want to argue about it because people always want to prove that they're right. So just to take a step back, years ago, Ian told me, Ian Hurwitz, I'm not sure if you had him on or not, but we've had him on our podcast a bunch of times. He told me a quote that he had heard, and it says, "If as a man and a father, if you don't do everything you can to better your family's position in life, you're failing." So that's always kind of rung true for me. But then I was like, okay, is that going to be time, energy, money? Which one's going to be? So for me, like, okay, every real estate investor that I know is probably the poorest person that you'll ever meet, because as soon as they have $5 in their pocket, they're going to spend that money on a new project. So unless they have cash reserves, and that's a whole other story. So the argument's always been, if you are going to be wealthy, is it wealth on paper or wealth with cash access? And can you access that wealth without having to pay a lot of fines and fees to, say, the government? So some people are cash rich, and some people are equity rich in real estate or other assets. So that's where we'll start at. I'll see where you guys think.
Always stirring up controversy. Yeah. So Tyler, what's your take on that then?
I don't know. I think the cash access. I mean, for me, equity is good, right? I think it's a balance. So equity is good, and I think it depends on your point in life. Let's say I have $2 million in equity, but I have a high-paying W-2 job or a job, and I don't need that cash access. Then I should focus on building equity as a long-term play. If I am counting on cash flow from my investments to support me and my family, then that cash access or monthly cash flow is more important. So, and I think you can have different seasons too. I think starting up, I think if a lot of people were to focus on produce or to building equity early on, because we know the more time you have in an investment, the more equity you're going to build. I think that's good. But yeah, I think it's situationally dependent, right? If this, then that. And for me, after I medically retired and my income took a hit from that side, I think it's more important to focus on cash access slash cash flow. I think they both can be the same thing, right? So that's where I would be right now. And I'm trying to build that up, that monthly cash flow up through things I'm working on currently.
What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think Tyler took the easy approach to it. I mean, I think, well, I think balance definitely is important, but I think you maybe have to decide early in your journey, maybe which direction you want to go in, right? Because if you're chasing net worth, you're kind of maybe you're able to handle your expenses now. You're looking at it like you're saying, building the wealth 20 years from now or whatnot. So like a lot of people in Hawaii, that's what their vision kind of is, right? They buy a home and they figure they sit on it 30 years. And now when they retire, they possibly have a paid off home, and now they're, a millionaire technically, right? Whereas some people, it might be better approach to look at it from your expenses, income, cash flow, focusing on that first to be able to get out of the rat race, and then you can kind of gear it towards increasing your net worth in a sense. But for me, I like I said, in Hawaii, definitely that's the path. The original path was to buy a home, sit on it, and now when I retire, I'm net worth wealthy in a sense, right? But then when the pandemic and all those things happen, and I started to realize that one stream of income, very risky. If something was to happen, I really started focusing more on my cash flow, increasing income that way to cover expenses, and then as far as like building net worth. But for me, it's more cash flow right now to pay for things.
So, all right, I'll throw a curveball at you. The went to an assisted living facility a couple of days ago. It's one I normally go to. It's a very wealthy facility, and the person I was talking to this past week, they're spending $16,000 a month to stay at the assisted living facility. So it's $144,000 a year. So, is their net worth, if it's wrapped up into investments and assets, and not really accessible, are they really wealthy because now they're spending $144,000 a year and just eating away their savings? And if there's a 5-year look back period by the IRS, if they go to sell it, then that will get eaten up quick, fast, in a hurry uh, before the Medicaid kicks in. So, what are y'all thoughts about that?
Well, so if we're saying they have $144,000 a year in expenses, and let's say their net worth is $1.44 million, and their investment income kicks out 10% or greater a year, they're at a net zero. So now at that point, their equity position is big enough and strong enough to not eliminate any of their principal balance. If it drops to less than 10% or their balance drops to less than that, then you're in a bad situation.
That's a great
Is that
answer.
what you're asking?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Nobody ever thinks to like break it down into percentages and if there's any kind of growth, because obviously there's appreciation in real estate, there's appreciation in stocks, there's appreciation in bonds, and it varies. Like because of everything going on right now, I think our 457 just took like a massive drop. I want to say like 13 or 16%. And
So, oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Now go ahead.
No. Go ahead, finish, and I'll jump in.
So I just got off of our union meeting for the fire department, and they're threatening us with furloughs and closing firehouses and rolling brownouts for at least 3 months. So everybody's now having this conversation. Well, what about income? What do I do? Am I still getting paid? Am I not getting paid? Can people volunteer for this? I want to be off for the summer. So this is all goes to the point of, do you have access to reserves or money in the back end in order to cover your financial costs? That's to your point, Tyler, because you just broke it down in percentages. And a lot of people, I think, don't know what their budget is and never built a budget and don't know how much money is coming and going because, $5 here on Amazon and $20 there on food and, $15 on supplies for whatever. Like they don't pay attention to that until it's $200, $300, $400, $500 a month in frivolous spending that they're not accounting for.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned that it's interesting is when my dad's dad, my grandfather, was in a hospital. My dad said that he could see my grandfather calculating the math because he invested in real estate, owned land, all of these things. And my dad's like, your grandfather was literally calculating whether or not it made sense for him to continue to stay in this place. And he passed away shortly thereafter, but he was like, I don't want to stay here because I'm going to eliminate my principal. So it shows two things. A, you have to understand those things. And then two, think about how powerful a choice that is made based off of purely this conversation. He did not know if it made sense for him to stay in a hospital to prolong his life because he knew that at some point he would run out of money. So to me, that was kind of crazy. I remember talking to him afterwards when we convinced him to go home so he could at least pass in his own home. But my dad's like, it was the weirdest thing. I see him is you could just see his head going, and he's like, he's calculating. He knew what his investments kicked off every single month. He's like, oh, I can't do this. And I guess good news, bad news is he had the money to do it for a while if he wanted to. Bad news is it forces you to make decisions that you probably would not normally make, right? If you don't think about things like this.
All right, before we move on, I just want to say morning to everyone tuning in. We got Ike Hobbs from Kansas. He's a firefighter in Kansas. I don't know, fill us in. I know he was looking at a fourplex, I believe he was looking to close on. I also put First Responder Financial Freedom's links in the chat. Go check them out. We got Hyder here as usual. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, we got I see Jennifer Moore here. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know where you're from. Please subscribe. Val's here. Flavio from Washington. Emotional. Okay. Jen's here. Late Start Wealth. There was a Karen that tuned in. I haven't seen her. Thanks for. She said, "Meow. Who is that man in the middle?" So initially it was Tyler. I don't know, and then I moved Aaron there, so I'm not sure, but I believe it came in when when Tyler was in the middle.
So when you're bald, that shows you have a lot of testosterone. So he's definitely meow.
Well, and then tomorrow I am interviewing Erica, so I have to follow up on your guys' episode on Apple Podcasts to they get a little better information on Erica. So I'm going to interview her tomorrow, and then that way I have a little background information on her. But yeah, I definitely think the net worth conversation is a confusing one to some people, right? So a lot of times, even just they look at it as an end goal, having a certain amount of net worth, but also it's learning how to access it or learning how you're gonna access that value that you have. And I think that's the struggle. So we had an accountability call this morning also, and that not net worth, and for example, but people that have rentals and they're trying to figure out how to make their next move, but they don't know how to get the capital or equity out of these properties, and that's the struggle they're finding. So even though you have these assets, it's also figuring out how you're going to be able to use them. So like Tyler, for you being a lender, is that some of the conversations that you have with people coming to you, like figuring out how to get equity or how to use their net worth or how to leverage it, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's like all figuring out different strategies and a lot of things, like people aren't thinking about. So like as the markets change, like conversations usually start to happen over and over again. And right now people are trying to figure out how to get second mortgages or HELOCs, whether it's to pay for personal expenses or to take that money and then reinvest. And then even to that point for me, right? Like a few years ago when I got hurt, it was like I have rentals that if I need that money, I can pay it off. And I can do a cash out refinance. Two reasons that's better. A, I don't have to pay taxes on that money. And B, my tenant's paying that debt back down again. So conceivably in 10 years, if I wanted to do it again, I will have paid no taxes on the money I had access to. And my tenants pay my debt back down. So yeah, I have a lot of those things. And I'm learning too. Like I learned, there's a client I have out here, they own a large office building. It's probably worth about 6 million and they owe 4 million on it, right? Cool part was they have investment accounts and insurance policies that are above that $4 million loan balance. Their current monthly payment is about $40,000 on that loan. They're able to take a loan against their investments while that property is on the open market to sell, and they took their monthly payment from 40,000 to 20,000 just because they have cash positions and investment positions in other assets. I didn't know that was really possible, and to me that makes financial sense. They just save themselves $250,000 a year by having things outside of real estate. So yeah, I discuss a lot of this. I'm trying to learn a lot of this. I'm really trying to blow up my private money lending right now, and I have been talking to lenders. I've been talking to law firms, all of these things, trying to educate myself because I think it's important. And I think, like I said, I think having access to that cash is huge. And I think loans right now, when the interest rates drop, we're going to be able to pull a ton of cheap money out against our equity, go reinvest into new properties, and the cycle is just going to continue.
One thing I would say is a lot of people don't know how to do the first calculations, and you touched on it briefly. So the bare bones for anybody listening, if you buy $100,000 house, we always add, or I always add, and I think Tyler does too. I'm not sure about Mark. We add 8% into closing costs, transfer and title, and all the fees associated with prepaids. So that $100,000 house, you're actually buying for $108,000. And I had to explain this to one of the firefighters who just bought a $500,000 house in DC. He was like, "Yeah, now my net worth is 500,000." I said, "No, if you put 20% down, the 20% down you put, which is $100,000, that means you have $100,000 in equity. So your net worth is $100,000. When you pay that $500,000 house off, that's a $500,000 equity position. Whereas if just you own a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't have any value or spread in the middle, it's not going to be worth it." So back to the $108,000. So if you sold the house for $200,000, you lose another 8% to transfer and title and closing costs and realtor fees. So you're actually selling it for $184,000. So the spread is $184,000 to $108,000. So if whether you're flipping or you're calculating out your net worth, like that's your spread right there, is that $184,000 to your $108,000.
Before I hurt his feelings, just want to say Joe's here. Joe V is tuning in. So yeah, he says he does want to see Aaron's cool dad shirt.
Doer of everything. When I get off here, I gotta fix the washer. I just finished cutting the grass, and I gotta work on my excavator after that.
Do you want to show us what you were working on though before this? You were doing something?
Yeah, the first hour before this, I was working on one of my retirement plaques. and there's a void in the wood, so it burned a hole in my retirement plaque. So I had to redo another one for another hour. And just goes to business, like your overhead varies depending on your materials. And obviously, with the tariffs coming in now, these material costs could go up or down. So I'm still bringing jobs back to America.
Cool. Let's see. Joe also just said firefighters have a hard time with math.
That's why we always explain it and have to coach cops.
And Trevor, thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe. Haven't seen you here, but he's saying, well, Tyler does private money lending. He says, Trevor says, give me the 100K right now so I can be rich like you three.
$100,000 isn't going to make you rich. I can promise you that. It's not going to go very far these days.
No.
It'll pay for Tyler's lawn care, though.
Well, Tyler, remind everyone where you live.
I live in Southern California at an undisclosed location. $100,000 could make you rich, right? Rule 72. We could do it, and let's say you double it every 3 to 4 years. 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. There you go. $1.6 million. So
let's get back on this net worth versus net worth rich versus cash rich. So I've been toying around the idea with selling some of my real estate properties and putting it into something like the stock market, right? So I'm just going to use round numbers because it's a lot easier. If I put in $1 million into the stock market and I have a growth of 10% a year, which is the average of the S&P, give or take, that means I can pull out about $100,000 a year, right? So with my retirement plus that, and this obviously caused controversy in our group because guys are like, when you retire, you don't make enough to live on. I'm like, okay, well then plan forward. So for me, if I sell my real estate, I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's less headache. It's the 80% of my problems is real estate based. So once I get rid of that and I put that money into something else that makes 10%, it's $100,000 you can live off of a year. And that's pretty easy, depending on what your cost basis is for your living. Like if I was living in Southern California, I had to hire somebody to cut my grass for me, my cost basis might go up. But if I'm in like suburbs of Washington, D.C., it might be a little bit cheaper. I'm taking digs at Tyler today just because I love him. I haven't seen him.
But cost of maintenance for a castle is going to be high, probably, if you're living
Absolutely
in a castle.
not. If they could live in there with just having a fire in the fireplace and a moat and wolfhounds running around it, that's all you need.
Don't all the Californians use rock?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's different. It's just changing your mindset, right? Or changing or being around people that are looking at it differently. And I think that's the one thing. I mean, I think net worth is something people are always talking about. So that's what they're looking at increasing. And I think it falls into the category, even like, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it, but even like credit score. They kind of are, to me, they kind of fall in that same category where some people are always trying to get this perfect credit score, 800 credit score. But that's attainable a lot of times when you're just, you're keeping no balance. You're not really using your credit in a sense where, in my opinion, your credit's meant to be used. And 800 is nice, but I don't mind it being lower in a sense where because I'm using it to acquire assets and it's going to fluctuate at times.
760 for your credit score. Anything above that is just bragging rights, right? And honestly, most lenders 740 and above, you're going to get the best pricing anywhere. So yeah, I mean, when you drop from 800 to 740, it's usually because you're using your credit. Maybe you have inquiries or balances are getting a little bit higher, but 740 and above, you should be top tier pricing on almost any lender. Aaron, I was going to say too, did you see that house that I posted on my Instagram like a week or two ago?
The castle.
Yeah, so dude, that guy does his own lawn. He does all of his own landscaping. I give that guy mad props. I would not do that, but I was surprised when he said he did all of it. So made me feel guilty.
There's somebody at one of my rental properties walking around it right now, and I don't know why. I'm getting alerts on my phone at the beach. He's looking in the windows.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's another thing. If you own real estate and it's vacant, make sure you have at least some kind of camera monitoring it so people can't come and go as they wish or try to break in. Hey, I'm gonna try to scare him. I'm gonna put myself on mute real quick.
Okay. So I guess too, since we're talking about net worth, a lot of us have. Do you guys have 457s through your department, Mark?
Yeah,
I know Aaron does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff too that I'm personally not knowledgeable about, but that's building our net worth consistently, and we've had the conversation before, is do you just go up to the department match if you have one, or do you go past that and try to max it out every year for those of us that are actively investing? So for both of you guys, and Mark, you can obviously, because Aaron's having fun on mute. You don't have to, I mean, what do you think's better? Do you guys talk about this, and do you think just matching whatever the department matches is the best strategy, or are you trying to max out your 457 every year?
I think it's better than nothing to max it out. But I think, like, especially in today's times, I think a lot of people are waking up a little bit, seeing how putting money in retirement accounts or investing in these retirement plans is really handcuffing them in a sense where they don't have as much control over it, and they're at the mercy of the market. So, like, whatever Trump's plans or visions is, what he's doing with tariffs, and if it's how the market is so volatile now, if they were planning to retire this year, or they retired earlier this year, and now their retirement accounts are dropping by 20% or whatnot, right now they're kind of handcuffed as far as planning their living in this. They're living off this fixed pot, I guess, in a sense, right? Where if they were focused on building wealth and building assets and cash flow, then I think that's more important. I think that's the better route to go. So if instead of putting money in retirement accounts, if you're trying to use it to leverage and acquire more assets while you're younger, that's the great way to do it. But definitely better than not doing anything, right? If you're not putting that money in the retirement account and you're traveling and buying the new truck and whatnot, then definitely, yeah. I mean, I would focus on at least putting something in the retirement account. But I think now that I see things and see how, like, government can manipulate a lot of things, I definitely rather build my own pension plan. I think Aaron talked about that before, like building your own pension plan.
I'm back. So I just set off the alarms around the house, and the guy like walked away quickly with a very awkward stance. He's walking like this as fast as he can back to his truck. If you can't see, it's look like Bart Simpson running away. I agree. The 457 thing, like it's just a tool in the toolbox, like everything else, like a 401k, like your whatever it might be, whatever your investing portal might be. We don't have a match in DC for your 457. It's whatever you put in there. But we did just get the option about 3 or 4 years ago for the Roth version, which is post tax. So each one's going to have the benefits, right? Like, so 457 regular, it's pre-tax, money goes in. It has, whatever growth you pick. I think we have 30 options in DC we can pick from, whichever aggression you want to put in to invest with. Or you have the after tax option. The good thing about the before tax option is that you can write it off against your earned income, but the after tax you can't. So I don't have the match. If I did have the match, I'd probably be more aggressive with it. But there's not really a whole lot that 457 is doing for me that I can't do on my own in like an S or like for like self what's it called, Tyler? Self something 401k or self
solo 401k.
Solo 401k. Thank you. No, sorry with the S. That was a tough one.
Yeah, Joe's gonna hammer you on that.
I know he is. I know. I was setting off alarms and I was distracted. I'm sorry, Joe. I just need to man up and use my big boy New York cop voice, apparently.
Well, he said you need to send the cops in to save the day. Firefighters are relying on cops again.
I'm from the mindset we don't call the cops first. So.
Well, to that point, I guess if we look at it, the reason people traditionally have done 457s is to allow tax-free growth, right? And I think taxes are going up, and it limits your income taxes for that year. But I think a lot of tools with real estate specifically, you guys had my brain turning right now, is if you can find depreciating that or like depreciation to offset that same amount of income, then now you have availability of funds at every single time or at any single time, and you're paying the same amount of income taxes. So at that point, I think the 457 almost makes zero sense because you've achieved the same goal and you have complete control and freedom, which is what we all want.
And we interviewed, this is a couple, I guess like 2 years ago, Tyler and I interviewed a fire chief from Northern California where he invests based on depreciation. So he can use the real estate to offset his income. So he buys more expensive properties, like the $1 million properties. I can't remember who that chief was.
Was it? So there was one that lived in like Arrowhead or Big Bear, and then we had Brian Burke, who has a private money fund.
Oh, man, it was too long ago. I can barely remember the last 2 days.
Yeah, me too.
I like what Ike says. He tries to. So Ike said my department doesn't match. I need as much as possible for my investment, so I ignore the 457 altogether. So Ike, to your point, I have also stopped putting as much in the 457 because financially it doesn't really benefit me, and the growth I can get better returns on other investments. But I say that tongue in cheek because right now I'm about to have a kid in the next 1 to 3 weeks. So will that change? Do I need to revisit because I probably won't be doing much real estate in the upcoming year or two, and I retire in 3 years. So for me, like I need to calculate everything out, lay it out, and see where am I making the most money, where's my biggest depreciation. I still need to do my taxes for 2024. Don't judge me. So it really depends on each person. Like what's the best tool in the toolbox that you have at the time to use. Like obviously, I'm not gonna use a hammer when I go fix my washer. I'm not gonna use a hammer on it. I'm probably gonna use a wrench and tools, a wrench and screwdrivers just to get it apart. So a lot of people, they don't take the time to kind of look and see where the money is coming and going. This always goes back to budget. This always goes back to net worth, net wealth. Like how can you grow it if you don't have a budget in place? And that's the biggest takeaway from all these conversations I've ever had with real estate. I just got a text message from another captain in my department asking, hey, do you have time at 3 o'clock to talk about more real estate stuff? And it's because nobody's ever sat down and talked to him about it. Like most of us have never sat down with somebody who's in the white collar industry until we decided to get into it. So we weren't grown and raised around. Most of us were grown and raised around blue collar ethic, blue collar work life, and nobody taught our parents, or our parents didn't teach us. But now we have the opportunity with technology to expand our knowledge and expand our net wealth, and that's kind of the basis for what I think all three of us do, is to help other people out. That was long.
Aaron, it's Steve Hostetter. I just looked it up.
That sounds right.
Hyder puts in a good comment. He says, self-directed investments for the win. Passive investments make the managers the winners.
I agree. And I would say if people have not looked at a solo 401k, I would highly suggest looking it up and figure out all of these things. And yeah, we can do things to generate substantially more income, I feel like, than the 457 funds. I don't know about your guys's, but mine, if you look, the first couple of years are like super strong, great returns, and then it goes down every single year. And it's because of fees, right? And then, I think that's something that's overlooked. It looks enticing. It's like 14%, 12%, 10, 10, and then like it slowly goes because the fees are just eating away at your returns. And that's why I would think a Vanguard fund over a 457. If you literally just put your money into a Vanguard fund over a 457, over time, you're going to beat that 457's return almost every single time.
And the other thing is that if you keep money in a 457, when you pull it all out, depending on if you're pre or post tax, if you pull all the money out at once, that's taxable income, taxable earned income. So you can, and I think Chris Balkley, who we've had, he's a firefighter out in, I always say the Midwest, and I guess guys make fun of me because everything from me is West. But Chris Balkley, he's a firefighter and he does financial advising. And he said, open up I can't remember the portal, but you can start rolling $5,000 a year or whatever the number into that over the next couple of years. That way you don't have to have the financial burden. And the other portal or investing vehicle that he had mentioned, which I can't think of off the top of my head, has more flexibility in what you can do with it. And it might be a SDIRA. I want to say it's a SDIRA, but it might not be. SDIRA is a self-directed IRA, if anybody's wondering. It's just an acronym for it.
Did you want to reply to Joe real quick? Or he said he's surprised that you knew, what did he say? A firefighter probably would use a hammer. I'm impressed it's not the tool to use.
Well, that's why I wore the shirt for Joe today, because I want to make sure that he knows which tool is what. Like, we'll go over it, like hammer, pliers, wrench, crescent wrench, or adjustable wrench. And then these are the words DAD. Okay, so that's my education for the cops today.
Once the cops learn how to quit blocking the structure that's on fire and get out of the way of the hydrant, then we can talk about what tools to use. Okay.
All right, let me do a quick story. My wagon driver died. He was line of duty death a couple of years ago. But one of the last fires we went on, it was cold outside, everything was frozen, and he went to pull the air brake and put the fire truck in park, and it kept rolling almost into the hydrant. So he had to stay in there, keep his foot in the brake, and he kept hollering for the cop that was just sitting there on the hydrant. He's like, "Hey, come give me a hand! Come give me a hand! Come grab the wheel chalk." So he's like, "What do I do with it?" He goes, "Put it under the wheel." He's like, "Well, how?" He's like, "Just throw it down." So he just opened this thing up and threw it in front of the tire. It wasn't folded like in the arch that matches the tire. He just threw it underneath of it. So that goes to show how educated cops are with tools.
We have a great question here. I haven't seen Agility Gold here before, but thanks for tuning in. It says, what's more important, choosing more money or having a sense of purpose?
That's a good one. Tyler and I talk about this a lot, like quality of life. What's more important? So your quality of life could be financially income. It could be spending time with your family. It could be traveling. I know I've spent a lot of money. I think I've driven cross country in about a dozen countries now, and I've explored quite a bit more. So for me, the life experiences were more important, but the money making aspect was a portal to having those life experiences, which is important to me. And now, as I've grown older, and obviously Mark and Tyler have kids that are older than mine are, I'm starting to readjust my focus. Like, okay, need to spend more time with the kids, need to spend more time with home, make memories with them, make sure they know who dad is when he comes home from work. So that's to me now important, and I think it always changes as you get older. Tyler, I hear your background.
Probably my kids. I think sense of purpose way more important. I think I have it on my desk. My wife actually printed this out for me, but it says "Know your why, and you will find your how." And I think if you flip it, it's a lot easier to get up and work every day. I mean, honestly, if you get up every day and like, I want to make more money, I want to make more money. Maybe that's how I was in my early 20s. In fact, I probably know it was. But after a while, it's like, well, if I flip it and say, my goal today is to be able to provide my family a secure financial future, to be able to do X, Y, and Z, then that's a lot easier to get down and work hard. But chasing the buck, I don't think is something that's sustainable. Chasing your purpose and having a higher purpose, I think that's something that will keep you going the whole time. And you got some angry people on here today, Mark.
Yeah, no shit.
They heard Aaron was on, that's why.
Bald is beautiful, unknown.
Yeah.
Kara wants to ask something.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, kind of relating also to the net worth conversation, right? So net worth, it's kind of harder to decide on a number that works for you. Whereas if you're focusing more on cash flow, it's an easier number to reach in a sense because you, like you're saying, Aaron, budgeting, figuring out what your expenses are. And now the goal is to get more income and cash flow to cover those expenses. So now you can have a sense of purpose or focus on whatever your life is. So even the other day, I played for the first time with my son the cash flow board game, the kids version, and
Nice.
it's a great game. And yeah, and after the game, he's like, "Oh, I liked it." He enjoyed it. So like I said, it's more about figuring out what covers your expenses, and now you can enjoy or have a sense of purpose. And people probably wonder why I'm always doing these lives at this time in the morning, for majority of the time. And this is the time that it doesn't interfere with my son. He's sleeping. It's before I have to get him ready for school. So that's also the reason why I like to do it at this time. And so it doesn't interfere with anything else as far as that we got going on.
What time is it there?
We started at 5 a.m.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ooh, so y'all are 6 hours behind us. Damn.
Currently, unless Trump gets rid of the daylight savings.
I'm with it, man. I'm with it. Get rid of it. Everybody comes to work lagging. Everybody's trying to play catch up with their sleep. They used to charge us in 1 hour. So if you worked in a day where it falls back an hour, they used to charge us an hour of leave up until this year. It's like, you petty motherfuckers.
So Proof Oak, thanks for tuning in again. I've been seeing you in a lot of the lives. I assume this person is more of a crypto Bitcoin person, but thanks for always tuning in. But he said, are these guys Bitcoin believers? Seems like none of the F.I.R.E guys believe in Bitcoin.
All firemen think it's a scam.
I mean, I invest in Bitcoin. I have money that goes into it. One of my best friends, he's got a mining company that mines Ethereum. But that's my main focus. There's a lot of volatility there. And I think that with the skill set that I have, that sounds like a movie quote. I try to focus on stuff that I know will make me money and I get a better return. Is there money to be made? Yeah. But if you have to know it and spend the time and energy on it and that's your niche, then absolutely. It's just not mine. I mean, I can go out and make woodwork like this and make have a computer do this work. To your point, over the course of an hour, I don't have to do anything, lift a finger until it's done, and I can make $100 an hour, $150 an hour just doing that. So I don't know. What about you guys? Are you Bitcoin people or crypto people?
I'm not. I mean, not that I don't believe in it. I don't invest in it because I don't understand it.
Yeah. So Hyder's definitely Bitcoin is greater than crypto. He always likes to clarify that. But Bitcoin, like to Tyler's point, I think there's benefits. I think it is a great asset class, but you do have to understand it, just like anything you're going to invest in. And I think for some of us, it's kind of, real estate is our main focus, or like private lending, fix and flips. Aaron has his side hustle, side business thing. So it's kind of, these are the things we're focusing on now. And there's just not enough bandwidth in a sense to take that risk in investing in another asset class. But Agility Go does have another great question. It kind of goes towards what Aaron talked about, building that plaque and whatnot. But do you think AI is going to destroy hustling within the next 5 years? So example, AI making better videos, music, mobile apps than humans, possibly even like what Aaron was working on. But what digital side hustles do you think will survive?
Tyler?
I definitely do. So for me, I keep thinking about this is if AI is going to make everything more efficient, which I think none of us can really argue that that's the case, right? Not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but it's definitely going to make things a lot more efficient. And if it eliminates jobs, then people's incomes will probably universally go down. Maybe not. But my concern is, okay, well, if that happens and I'm a landlord, what do I think is going to happen with real estate as far as appreciation goes? And traditionally, over as long as we've been keeping track, I think there's like 7 to 10 years in the history of the US where housing has actually had a down year, right? But I keep thinking, well, if people can't afford to buy houses, values then should go down. And if all of our net worth is in these houses, should we diversify more now than ever? Because prior to this, I don't think there was a need. On the flip side, since I've been curious, I've been researching and listening to people who are way more involved in AI. They seem to believe that you're always going to need people to work on prompts for the AI, fact check the AI, and build out all of these systems for the AI. So I think a lot of education, or a lot of, it's like trades could be AI trades at that point, if that makes sense.
I'm glad this was brought up because I don't think it's talked about enough, especially in the US. Like in my plethora of browsers I have open, I have Lumen open, I have ChatGPT open, 11 Labs open, Discord, and a couple other ones because I've been trying to learn more about AI. And I think AI has a good place in the world. I think it can push us further faster than we could do with just the human brain. And I think in the last 6 months, the smart AI computer, the smartest AI computer, has so far surpassed the intelligence of average human. I want to say it was like a margin of like 3 to 6%, but that's over the course of the last year, and AI's only been around for a couple of years. That being said, like there's hands-on jobs that will never be taken away from AI. A robot's not going to respond to your house and pull a line off and put the fire out because everything changes, or it's not going to come to my house and work on my equipment, or it's not going to come to your house and work on your car. They'll help diagnose it. Like even now, there's an AI that's diagnosing a cough for tuberculosis more accurately just based on the sound of the cough than a doctor can. So yeah, I think that a lot of jobs will become easier, but I think it's the biggest tool in the future toolbox that we can have.
Thought you were going to take a jab at replacing police officers already.
They're already out there though. That was too easy. I mean, I think Taiwan or
yeah. Did you see that thing, dude? How it was like it looked gnarly.
It has like a mask and it has like facial recognition.
Yes.
It's looking for people in the database while it's walking around.
I would not mess around if that thing was around me. I'd be like, yep, nope, no, thank you.
That's the first Terminator of the Skynet.
So Hyder says, I don't think there will ever be a shortage of problems for both AI and humans to work on. So I think I saw that on a podcast too. I think with Tom Bilyeu, he was talking about how, when the computers and maybe internet first came out, people were so concerned that jobs were going to disappear because of these things. and then you realize that it just creates different jobs. So yes, some jobs do get eliminated, but at the same time, more opportunities and different jobs are created because maybe efficiency is improved, and now other jobs are created because they're focusing on other things. So I think it was an interesting point, and I think it's going to be a definitely a transition period. Like AI probably will take away a lot of jobs, but then there's going to be a creation of new jobs after that.
And then you look at it in like so we're looking through a scope of the United States. Like that's what we're used to looking at it. If you travel to places like Ethiopia, India, Africa, or parts of Africa like Tanzania, Kenya, they don't have a lot of these systems in places or the infrastructure to make it happen. They also don't have the electricity structure to run AI because it takes a lot of energy to run AI. So, like to Hydar's point, he's a drywall guy, and he said that AI robots have been hanging drywall, not sure if they're taping and mudding or even hanging sheets outside of the full sheets in the field, corners and custom cut pieces. So I agree with you. Like you might be able to set something up there and it'll tell you exactly how to cut this piece to fit this corner the best. But in terms of like putting a robot on site and just being like, all right, go, like it's going to have some kind of human oversight to get the equipment to the site. So yeah, it might take jobs away, but there's going to be other jobs in place of it.
Did I miss a question or something? Jovi said, "I know cars are cool. Cars are cool. Yeah, if you have a question, be respectful. But yeah, you can ask any question you want."
I mean, last time he asked, since my wife is pregnant, if we had sex, certainly a threesome. So I mean, I think anything's pretty much fair game now.
Was that the same one?
Is that the same? No, that was Matausi or something.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that person hasn't tuned in a while, so
maybe he's changing names this time.
Agility Gold says, "Yeah, I think physical side hustles are safe, more or less, but all digital side hustles are at a huge risk, in my opinion. That's my area." Absolutely. I think there's always going to be that fear transition, but I also think like there's opportunities. So, I'm not sure how true it might like. So even like this YouTube side, or if you're looking at a side hustle, creating videos, there's so much people doing the editing and AI now that there is people that are saying like the unedited versions are going to be what's popular because people are wanting that more kind of real feel or connecting with that person and not seeing all these edited videos and AI images. So there might be a flip side to that also, but we'll see. But I'm sure there's going to be some things that are lost, but I think there'll definitely be more opportunities at the end also.
And there's also the shiny object syndrome, like when Meta made an alternate universe where people made an avatar and like Snoop Dogg had his $1 million mansion and people were paying like tens of thousands of dollars for a piece of land in a digital universe. Like I think some of this stuff is going to be fad. That's one of the many things. But I also think that there's going to be benefits to certain things like AI being able to diagnose, your cough into tuberculosis in third world countries. So.
Hey, what's up, Harrison? Trade Betters here. Joe, I do not see his question, so maybe it was something inappropriate and Hyder blocked it or deleted it, but I don't see it.
I looked through and all it said was, "Can I ask you a serious question?" And he just kept asking multiple times. I don't think he ever asked the question.
Okay, well, cars are cool. If you are still here, you're welcome to throw your question in the chat.
I'd rather talk to Joe V.
Yeah,
I throw it out there.
I told Joe he's welcome on anytime, but he's too afraid to come on, I guess.
Trade Better. Harrison, what's up, buddy? Congratulations on the baby. I think I've said it to you before.
Yeah. He's got some work issues going on, so he said probably after this week he'll be able to hop back on. So I asked him first to come on today if he could, but he was unable to. So we'll get him back on. But I don't know what else are you guys working on. I mean, do you guys want to talk about the network? Like, for the younger guys, especially coming in the department now, like, how do they approach you about that, or do you see them just focusing on like trying to build their net worth in a sense, or is that the advice they're getting?
For me, most of the young guys that I deal with at work, I have the conversation of, are you building up your leave banks in case something happens? Do you have plans if you're getting married, with plans for the kids? Where are you guys looking at buying? Because we have some extreme commuters from DC. Our furthest commuter to DC is actually in Mesa, Arizona, or just outside of Mesa. Then we have people driving from two of the boroughs in New York, one person from Ohio, one person from Scranton, and a couple of people from North Carolina. So like, I'm like, how have you calculated out your cost of time and your commute to the quality of life of where you're at? And Tyler and I, we did a podcast with Karen Losey, which is a lieutenant at 16 Engine, which is the first dude to the White House. And she commutes from Scranton, PA. I think it's a 4 to 4.5 hour ride from Scranton to DC. She does it every 4 days. And I'm like, is that worth your time and energy? But they've got a business and family and everything up there, so maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't been on in a while, but Kevin, he's a firefighter in the Bay Area, but he does self storage, but he has a captain, I believe, that flies back to Hawaii on the 4. Like that's the commute right now because I believe the wife moved here and she wants to stay here, and he's just trying to finish up his time. So I don't know exactly. I think he only has a few more years left, but yeah, basically he's doing the commute from here to California.
Yeah, we have a guy going from LA County to Maui. His nickname is Maui because, well, firemen are really creative. But yeah, yeah, they commute. I think we have a lot of guys going from LA County to like Idaho or Arizona and Nevada just for cheaper cost of living. And I think that if you do pencil it out and it makes sense, then perfect. But there's some stuff that I've seen that I want to say Atlanta, Georgia. I talked to this captain. And I was like, dude, his schedule didn't seem that great, and it wasn't like I'm like, I don't get that one. Like, for me, that was one of the few where I'm like, this makes a little to zero sense. I don't know why he's doing it, but hey, to each their own, I guess.
Yeah, so Joe V says time with the family has become priority, and now he wants to maybe stir up Aaron a little bit. But he says, any new thoughts on Trump's tariffs? He met with Zelensky on Saturday. Thoughts?
Oh man. I mean, I drove by the White House 2 days ago, I think it was, and they have signs out in the White House lawn. I think of about 100 people that were arrested that were illegals in the U.S. So, like, a lot of these questions and a lot of these things that you see going on is political posturing, where they're gonna like, look at what I'm doing, look at what I'm doing, but in reality, there's something else going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Same thing that happens on both sides. It's Democrats and Republicans. Like, you can have the most common sense bill being passed by the Democrats, and if you have all the people on the Republican side voting on political lines, then it won't pass, even though it makes the most sense for the constituents. Same thing for the Republicans right now. If they're voting on something that's on a bill and all the Democrats decide they're going to vote in line with their party, then I think it's all political posturing. It's not doing the benefit for the good of the people. I think it's doing what they can to stay in office and be part of the cool kids club, because in Washington, D.C., the elected officials are the cool kids club. They're the ones that are treated like royalty. They're the ones that are, the Hollywood of L.A. is the politicians of D.C. So whatever you see in the news, like, it's, even if it's cut up conversation or not showing the full picture or doing it for whatever media views, because media relies on views in order to stay alive, I think a lot of it's BS. And the tariffs, I mean, you got to look behind the scenes and see, like, why are they making these moves? I know with the Greenland conversation, the shipping lanes that U.S. and Russia share come past Greenland, so we control Greenland, and it controls the shipping lane. Same thing for Panama. China is doing a lot of building and infrastructure down in Panama. So if there's an agreement, treaty, I can't remember the specifics of it because it doesn't really affect me. But if somebody else comes in and tries to control the Panama Canal, then we can take ownership of it again, and then we control the trade routes from there as well. And trade routes, I mean, that's one of the biggest things in the world that's a financial mover, is being able to control stuff coming and going. So the tariffs, I think there's a lot of reasoning behind it. Some of it's just a loudmouth rich New Yorker who's poking at people because now he can, and he's elected again. And it could be, a power move for the U.S. There's no way for me to know without spending a lot more energy and time that I'm willing to work with.
Yeah, I was just looking at the bond market the last couple of days, and after Trump mentioned that they're going to be reasonable in tariffs, the bond market has definitely kind of just been flat and quiet. So I think it's very emotional right now on that side, and I think they are looking to see what he's going to do. And the 10-year and the mortgage-backed security market has definitely calmed down a lot since he specifically said they'll be reasonable. So that's how crazy this is. Like, our economy is hinged on these words, and I'm like, boom, okay, bond market settles down just because he said reasonable, and they're all keyed on, and that's billions and billions of dollars that's going through those hands. And they're like, okay, well, he said reasonable. It's calmed down. I was going to think since Thursday. So since Thursday, it's been way less volatile. Prior to that, it's been crazy. So stability is good for investing, right? If people understand where we're headed, regardless of where we're headed, I think people can make informed decisions.
Yeah, projections are everything. In the group, in the first responder financial freedom group that we have, I had a cop, of course, want to argue that he's like, well, I don't know what my future money is going to be worth. I can't plan for the future. Something stupid, something uneducated like that, like most cops say. The long and the short of it is, like, if you don't have a plan in place, then what are you going to do with the last minute decisions or something that's an emergency pops up? Whether it be you're focusing on your net wealth or your earned income or your cash flow or whatever it might be. Like, if you don't have a plan in place for, plan A, B, and C, and then have a goals for those plans to get there, then what's the point? Like, just, are you living your life, or are you just kind of surviving day by day and going along with the flow, whatever everything else controls you to say and think and speak, like the tariffs and all the other political bullshit in DC?
Yeah, I think to that point also, like what Hyder's saying, he heard an amazing explanation on tariffs. If we tariff crap we don't need, we'll be fine. If we tariff natural resources that we cannot obtain otherwise, then we are hurting ourselves. And I think that's part of the issue as the U.S. or America is the ones that we've become accustomed or to cheap goods and crap, and a lot of these tariffs are impacting that, and it's making people uneasy. And like I think I talked about it on another episode, is kind of, you see people with 4 TVs in a home now. Everyone has a smartphone. People have, multiple vehicles. So it's kind of like, are we getting too accustomed of just buying things because they're cheap in a sense, and that these tariffs are impacting us that way? Where, like you're saying, we're like Tyler touched on it, how words are impacting people's kind of feelings. And Trump, yeah, his messaging is poor, but I think he also does that on purpose. But you talked about Greenland also, Aaron, but he's also pointing out things that no one wants to bring to the table, have that hard discussion. So I think, like, his tariff talks, people weren't talking about it like just 2 years ago, right? But now you're seeing how people are starting to realize China doesn't play fair, or how these tariffs are not fair in a sense. So no one wanted to approach this topic, or no one wanted to bring it to the table. And yeah, maybe he could have brought it to the table in a better way, but now you're seeing people have an opinion on it, look into it, see how we're not really benefiting possibly from it. So I think that's the bottom line, right?
Another way to look at it too is, like, so I don't think people realize how much, like, say, lumber or oil that we import and export and whatnot. So you look at some of these things, it's like, well, maybe we're actually trying to use up everybody else's before we use ours. That was a big conversation with oil when we gave away our reserves, or Biden gave away our reserves, I should say, a couple of years ago. That was a big sticking point. But, like, during COVID and such like that, like, we're for lumber prices went skyrocket. That wasn't necessarily import export, because the U.S. is one of the top three exporters of wood in the world. I think it's Brazil, U.S., and Canada are the top three. So, like, let's look behind. Let's look past all the talking points and all the drama and all the bullshit and all the things the news bring up, the hot button topics. Like, let's look past that and see, like, what's really happening and why. And sometimes it's just like eggs. The farmers who are selling eggs, their prices, their contracts have not gone up with the distributor, but the middleman raised the prices to see how much pain will these people pay per egg. So I think a couple of years ago it was like 25 cents an egg or 20 cents an egg, and then it got to like 70 or 80 cents an egg. So, like, the farmers aren't making, or the producers aren't making the profits. It's the middleman. So let's look past all the drama of, oh, eggs are more expensive because Trump's in office. Eggs are more expensive because Biden's in office. Let's actually look back and see it's actually capitalism. It's people it's the middleman trying to make a buck off of U.S. citizens.
Proof Oat says, Aaron scared me, so I sold everything.
Good.
Yeah, and Hyder says, yeah, smartphones are tech miracles, and we throw them away like candy wrappers.
What's funny is that my grandfather was the creator of one of the first IBM computers, or something to do with IBM, and he left my grandmother with the neighbor's wife, moved to California. That's why I always have something with the left coast against the left coast. And yeah, it was kind of cool. I think he called the company Lombard after Lombard Street in San Francisco. I love tech and I love being around it and I like understanding it, but it's as good as it is, it can be very, very dangerous too.
Jen said Trump is obnoxious as F, but if he can bring manufacturing back, especially with the pharmaceuticals, that would be great.
I don't know, since you guys are left coasters and off the lower 48. If you ever spend time in New York City is a very aggressive. New York City, especially. New York State's different, but the city itself is very brash, direct, loud, aggressive. Especially if you're a businessman, if you need to make a name for yourself, like you have to be that way. So, to Jen's point, like that's one of the reasons I didn't necessarily like him as a person. But you don't always have to like your boss if he's going to put the money in your pocket, and that's kind of what I tell people. Like I don't dislike him now. I think he's calmed down a lot, but it's everybody has a different type of personality for culture for where they're at, and his is that 6'4", loud, rich, large billionaire, so he can get away with whatever he wants to. Like you and I probably could not.
It's funny.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna just say, do you think I saw like someone saying, do you think it's just like a WWE character, right? Because right, like a lot of people, they say when they have dinner with him or in person, he is completely different in a sense, right? Very, approachable. You like him at the end of the day. So, but it's almost like this persona he's putting out, like this character he's playing out there. So, I don't know.
But there's self-made people, and you can argue this all day long if he's self-made or not. He doesn't have to care what people thinks about him. He's a billionaire. So like if he says something to piss you off, it's not going to affect him at the end of the day. It might affect the economy, but the same thing can be said for Biden, Nixon, Reagan, Bush, Ford, Clinton. So I would take Donald Trump over several of the presidents I just mentioned 10 out of 10 times just because I know how dirty they are.
I think too, people take that like he's I don't know if this is a good term, but like he's like a soundbite president, right? Like he knows like those little clips to just get people going. But like if you listen to some of his long form interviews, like he was on All In or Joe Rogan, I think you get like a better perspective of who he is. And it was kind of funny. So I love All In, by the way. If nobody listens to All In podcast, they should. But one of those guys who's now actually on the crypto, whatever, David Sachs, they held this benefit in San Francisco, of all places, right? Because that's where a lot of the tech dudes are from. But there's guys on the podcast that are on both sides of the aisle, right? Democrats and Republicans. And the Democratic dudes were laughing because they were like, I don't want to admit this, but I didn't actually hate him as much as I thought he would. Or as much as I thought he would. Once I got to talk to him, they said he was super engaging. He was like great to be around, good storyteller. Like they liked being around him. And I think part of me, he's like the guy at the fire station. And I kind of like to do this when I was there too, is like walk in the morning, pull the pin on a grenade and just go like, let's start the shift off like this, boom, and drop a bomb on somebody and see what happens for the next 24 hours. It was fun. I mean, I wasn't the president of the United States, so maybe not the good thing to do, but like, I don't know about you guys. I love starting stuff at the fire station and I love talking trash. It is like one of my most favorite things about the job.
And then walking out of the room after you stir it up.
Yes. It's like, boom, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's see. Hugo, Stay Winning Podcast, stopping by. Thanks for tuning in, man. He says, policies impact my money, not his personality. Hyder says, I'm not a fan of pharma. I prefer natural health through natural means. Jovi agrees. His Rogan podcast was great. Hyder says, I'm impartial on Trump. If he's playing a role as POTUS, I think he's a net positive rather than a net negative.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then you look at the American way, like obviously there's the pro two-way and people who are anti two-way. So I'm obviously a pro two-way guy. As you can see, like I've got one of my crossbows for hunting sitting on the wall. You got to realize that like if we didn't have people who are like, red-blooded Americans who are, beat your chest Americas, then we would be in the position where the UK is, where if you hurt somebody's feelings on social media, you can get arrested. or I wouldn't say they had internment camps like in Australia or things like that, because I don't know how COVID actually happened over there. But like if you were under house arrest because they consider you might have COVID, you're not taking the shot. I think once America decided, the United States, I should say, not America, the United States decided to take lead in a lot of things in the world, I think people follow. And you see that in Ireland right now. There was a 100,000 person march against all the immigrants that they're bringing in because they're changing the culture. They're not having people in there to assimilate. So there's a big pushback on that. So I think with the U.S., it's the same thing. Like I think that the way we bring immigration in, I think it needs to be changed, but we need to have it to a point where they can assimilate into the U.S. culture, not create subcultures, and then create differences.
We got a lot of new viewers tuning in today, so thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe, hit the like button. So say aloha, George. Philip from Australia says we love Trump.
Good taste.
Yeah, I think to your point too, Tyler. So I had a new new chief for the battalion, and when he came in, he just same thing. He had that posturing, like it was like, hey, we haven't done these annual station visits for how long? It was kind of just one of those things. Okay, just check off, right? And he said like, nope, I'm coming this year, and it was like we all heard his first visit to one of the stations. He basically walked in, rubbed his hand across like the TV screen or the back of the screen or the the VHS or whatever was in there and had dust, and he just walked out. He said, "Call me back when you guys are ready." And that got around to everyone, every station in the battalion, and we were patching holes in the walls after that. We were scrubbing the walls and waxing the floors, and it was just that was how he came in first, and then but as since then he's kind of eased up, but he's laid the groundwork, right? And I think that to your point, right? Trump kind of just came in, and maybe maybe it's an act. We don't know, but he had to come in strong, and that's kind of and like you said, I think other countries, they don't have to worry about re-election in a sense, right? So they have time to maybe put their plans in place or whatnot. Where he only probably has this short window right now. He can't get reelected, and he has to kind of take advantage and just kind of go all in right now. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Why he's like you say, he's going in with a sledgehammer in a sense.
Well, it's like Cat Williams was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, and he scorched the earth. He called every famous person out, like, this guy had a cock in his mouth, and this guy is doing dirt, and blah 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 blah. So like I was like, man, I hope Trump comes in and does the same thing. Like just scorch the earth, like call everybody out. Because I think that's what we need. There's not accountability when you have a good old boys club. Like you're not held to the same standards. You just want to go with the flow to stay in the position of power. And this is probably gonna get edited out or at least or blurred out. It's where when Al came on the job, it was like you have to make a fucking decision, and you can screw up and you can fuck up. It's not about how bad you fuck up, but about how good you recover. So as long as you're making decisions and you have the best interest of, in this case, either your family or the country in mind, then that's all you need to kind of have to be confident in your abilities. And then if you screw up, you got to recover, or at least try to recover, or ask people like Tyler who has life experiences, like how do I fix this, or Mark, like, hey, where can I go to do this? Like you need to have a team, because really hate this conversation or this quote, but it takes a town to raise a child or something like that. What is it? Somebody help me.
It takes a village.
It takes a village. Like I don't necessarily agree with that, but like it'll help you make your life better if you can have somebody to lean on. And I think Trump is now in a place where he knows the players in the city, because the political party is starkly different here than most people's hometowns. So now that he knows the people, he can make better decisions and move forward.
Yeah, Hyder says, I'm very pro 2A. He also says we need to change the incentive structure immigrants are incentivized by. Jen also says, I watched the news a lot during COVID and I got really upset with what he said, but I agree. He's needed for America, so I watch him less and wait for his actions. He's needed right now for our country. And yeah.
I think we can all agree there hasn't been enough arrests. I'm just going to leave that out there. Like you can talk all you want to and put it on social media and woo, like arrest some motherfucker. Jesus Christ, like do something. Like all this political posturing, it's all bullshit and it's not going to go anywhere unless people are held accountable. So do something or shut the fuck up. All right, I'm done.
That was like Andy Frisella said that because he backed Trump, but like he did not go to Mar-a-Lago or anything like that because he's like, I'm not tying myself to anybody. And he's like, if he doesn't arrest people within the first X amount of days, he's like, I'm over it because I'm tired of everybody saying this and not doing something.
Okay, we may be canceled, it looks like. Man on the Moon, thanks for tuning in. Haven't seen you here, but please subscribe. He says, I am reporting this channel for having too many bald men.
So I guess 2 out of 3 is too bad, huh?
Bald is beautiful. They arrested that Wisconsin judge on Friday. See, I don't even watch the news, so I don't know who said that, Jen. I cannot watch the news anymore. It is just so gnarly. I can't do it. I'll read through stuff, but I think people get on that 24-hour news cycle and just amp themselves up to no end. And what is it doing? It's not going to affect you individually by sitting there staring at the screen the whole time, listening to the same talking points by 8 different talking heads over and over and over.
Yes,
we have 2 war vets assigned to my firehouse, and one's far left and one's far right. So every once in a while, like we'll turn on the news and just be like, boom, let's see these 2 go at it for the next 3 hours. And they'll just sit there and argue until they're red in the face. I'm like, you aren't going to change each other's minds on this. Like you're both way too emotional. Like you need to get on like the pill or something like that. Calm down, man.
So Jen is in California, but she says, yeah, I think even a lot of West Coast people have changed their minds.
Oh yeah, Andy Frisella says the wood chipper. Lane 5 ready. Yeah, he says throw them all on the wood chipper.
Oh, Man on the Moon says I am bald also. Jovi said they arrested the Wisconsin judge on Friday.
That's, oh man. Everybody's having a field day with that one. Like, how dare you? Like, they're not, same thing. It's like saying a lawyer is above the law. Like, lawyers are infallible. Like, no, man, all these people are human. Like, they make mistakes, and some people have the connections to cover it up.
Hyder has he says the news is filtered through the news. No good, in my opinion.
Well, then who owns the news? So whoever owns the news controls the narrative. So if you own the news media, and I think there's like 4 or 5 that own the majority of the bulk, and there's been videos where they say the exact same thing in all these different little boxes, because that's what they're prompted to do to keep their job, to be part of the in club. But all this stuff is it's all noise at the end of the day for us. Like, I could give a shit less about a Wisconsin judge. Yeah, the principle of the matter, I get it. But like at the end of the day, it's not affecting my decisions that I'm making on a day-to-day life to better my position. And I know it's not like Tyler's not watching it because he's got other things to focus on that are going to better his life. So like, yeah, you can listen to all this stuff. Just make sure the noise isn't distracting you, like the shiny object syndrome, from focusing on you moving forward.
Yeah, Philip, he said all the people crossing your borders was crazy. We saw it on the news every day. I think he said Biden giving them money and hotels to live in was really stupid.
Yeah,
we got Mountain Man. Haven't seen you here. Also, thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe. Says, what the fuck happened to common sense?
Yeah. So Phil Leonard, all the people crossing our borders. This is like, I know a lot of people hit the main points of it, but like when I did weapons of mass destruction training in Alabama and then in New Mexico, I met a lot of guys who work the borders, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't hear about, like people with their heads cut off, or people with their hands cut off, or people left to die in the desert, or kids left behind to die. Like, those are the things that you don't hear about in the news media because it's very shocking, and they don't want to. I don't think they want to make that as known as it is. So it's not just about the people coming across the border. It's the humanity of it, and the things that people have to deal with on the border, whether they live there or work there, are a lot more far-fetched than we anticipated. So the cartel sees you as a dollar bill. So if I'm trying to get across the border, I got to spend, say, $5,000, and from what I understand, they charge like Chinese people like 15,000, but they charge Venezuelans like 5,000 or whatever the numbers are to get across the border. But they don't see you as a person. They don't see you as a human being. They see you as a dollar sign. You're not, there's no humanity there. They're just getting you across the border to make money, to fund the cartels, to bring more drugs and guns and all the sex traffic and human trafficking and all this stuff. So there's a lot bigger picture than just people coming across the border. And just to make this a lot longer than it should have been, a friend of mine is she's an attorney for Aruba, and they have a huge problem with people coming in from Venezuela because at the top of the mountain on Aruba, you can see Venezuela. So they have a lot of problems with crime coming in. It's been one of the safest islands in this area of the world for a long time until the Venezuelans are illegally coming in on boats with guns and drugs. So when I saw them last and talked to them last, she's like, I understand what you guys are going through with your borders being open because we have the same problem. Never in my life did I think that Aruba was going to have this problem, but it's kind of eye opening to see that there's these issues in, say, Ireland or Aruba, the U.S., and a couple other places I'm not going to mention. But yeah, it's very interesting to see the back end of this stuff, not the front facing news aspect of it.
Joe's asking, I believe Philip was from Australia. So if he is still here, you can confirm that. Hyder says, yeah, the dollar is the real weapon of mass destruction. Ask any other country that trades with us. Flavio says 18K now. I believe he's referring to your, Aaron, the cost, I
The
guess.
cost to get across the border. That's crazy.
Did
They
someone,
got to pay up. From what I understand, they have to pay up front. So like, there's no sweat off their back if they leave them to die in the desert.
yeah, so I know you guys are usually on a timeline or time schedule. So I don't know if you guys got to bounce, but if you guys got to go, just let me know. We can end this at any time. But if anyone out there hasn't heard, I've restarted the series with Michael Zuber. So we're going to be doing it weekly, where I dig through his comment section and kind of pick up the spicy comments or trolls out there and how he addresses it. But there was one comment that I didn't get to cover with him the other day, and I'm not sure if one of you guys have an opinion on it, but someone had a question about Letitia James and her mortgage fraud. So I know Tyler's in the mortgage business. I know Aaron probably has some political stance on this or whatnot. But do you guys know anything about that? And what's your thoughts on that?
I haven't even heard about it. So like I said, I don't watch the news, so I don't even know.
I mean, I've heard briefly about it, but I don't pay it much mind or much energy just because it's probably going to get swept under the rug or they'll make an excuse. It's kind of like when somebody overdoses, it's because they have a sinus infection and they have her on like a Z-Pack or something. Like there's always an excuse as to why people do this and they get away with it because they have an excuse and they have power.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it too is because that's kind of the things that they were trying to attack Trump on as far as his inflating the value of Mar-a-Lago and things like that for real estate. So I know there was a couple of things. I think one, she may have, I don't know, I don't want to say lie or whatnot, but she put one of her properties as a 4-unit when it was a 5-unit to get the better financing, because as we all know, 4 units and below is considered residential. So I believe that is one thing she's being investigated for. I think another thing was she put herself as the primary or the spouse of her father or something on the resident or on the mortgage application or something like that. But there's a couple of things that she's being investigated on, and people are, I think these are the kind of things they're trying to attack Trump on, right? And now they're bringing it back on her, and as far as mortgage fraud and whatnot. So that was one of the questions that someone wanted Zuber to address. I just didn't get a chance to cover it with him, so I didn't know if any of you had a thought on it. But as you can see, like Aaron, you always touch on it, right? Both sides are corrupt in a sense, right? They're all thinking they're above the law in a sense. So it's really, like you said, who's in charge of the media, who has the control, and how they want to present it to you.
So there's I can't remember his position, but he's in PG County where I live at, just outside of DC. His name was Jack Johnson. You can look this up. He was taking kickbacks from different developments. One of the developments being about a quarter mile from here, where the FBI building was supposed to be being built soon, but not. That's a whole other story. But Jack Johnson, he was dirty. He was very, very dirty. He was taking kickbacks and bribes and everything. So they caught him on camera calling his wife saying, "Stuff the money in your bra and leave. Stuff the money in your bra and leave." So like, there's a lot of dirt that goes on out there, and people aren't held accountable to it or caught until your spotlight's put on you. Like I know if they put the spotlight on me to run for some kind of political position, they're going to find all types of dirt. And this might not be dirt that I actually knew about or understood or made the right decision on. I might not have been doing it on purpose, but they're going to find dirt on you. So her personally, her political position, I don't like her as a person or a politician. But in terms of finances, maybe she didn't know she was doing. Maybe she did. I have no idea.
Joe Joe wants to confirm, make sure that we all know that which was stated Trump did not. It was agreed upon price between him and the bank.
And there was no there. They got paid back with
Yeah.
interest and blah 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 blah. That was creating something out of nowhere to hold him as a political candidate or political prisoner.
I want to say aloha, General. Man, there's a lot of new people tuning in today, so I better have a whole bunch of new subscribers after this. But
I tried to link
General,
ours. I tried to link ours with this. I don't know if it worked or not.
well, maybe that's what's bringing it in. I don't know. Like I said, you're the most requested guest, so
Only by Joe V. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you, bro. Maybe
General
Haidar. Thanks, Haidar.
General says food makes you sick, work exhausts you, entertainment drains your time when you should recover. This cycle because of money is evil. Yes, I think that kind of goes back to like the sense of purpose, right? Yeah, I mean, you might have to sacrifice a little bit at a certain point to get where you need to be, but at the end of the day, it's kind of understanding what your sense of purpose is or that end goal, and not necessarily, you got to know when you've won the game in a sense, right? When you can quit and kind of focus on that sense of purpose side, but you got to sacrifice for a while typically, right?
Yeah, definitely do that. I was talking to one of the guys that's I don't know how I say this. He's active in our group, Alex. I just called him a little while ago, and he's like, I want to sit down and go over how to market, how to kind of pull lists together. So I think if you build a community that can help push you forward, that's the healthiest thing you can do. It doesn't have to be finances or real estate. It can be your health. Like obviously somebody on here is pushing the health aspect of it and food, which I agree with. I think that the dyes that RFK are trying to get rid of are probably for the betterment of the U.S. citizens. But like you just need to surround yourself with people who are going to push you forward, and not people who just have opinions of what you're doing, but people who actually have knowledge to springboard you into the next position of life.
Okay, I don't know how much time you guys have left or which one you want to dig into. Okay, so yeah, Tyler just said you got to bounce, so that's fine. Thanks for doing this, man. I know this was last minute. You're always welcome, man. So thanks for helping
Thank
out.
you. See you guys.
Hey, Ty.
So Aaron, like you said, you are a 2A. So Philip, he's from Australia. Like I said, you guys in America love your guns. Here in Australia, they took ours away. What do you think needs to be done about the gun violence in the USA?
It depends on what kind of gun violence you're talking about, because if you go on the FBI statistics, you guys can from Australia can go on there and look up the actual statistics. Don't listen to what the news media says, because those are inaccurate numbers. I want to say we have about 450 million people in the U.S. No, 350 million. It's 350 million people in the U.S. So our population and our size of the U.S. alone is a lot bigger than most people understand. So how often something like gun violence happens is not as often as the media portrays, or is more often than the media portrays it. So I'll give a prime example. I was having this discussion at Firehouse a couple of days ago, and we were talking about how many people's Teslas are getting damaged and keyed and spray painted or whatever because people don't like Elon. So I was like, man, it's got to be at least 100. And my buddy's like, I bet you it's like a dozen. So we looked up the stats, and all the media spotlight on this issue is for 80 cars. 80 cars have been actually keyed or damaged, but it's a good hot button topic for the media to push and with an agenda. So that gets a lot of attention. So in terms of gun violence, like, yeah, we do have a lot of gun violence, but there's also a lot more people here. So it's a very small percentage of people who are affected by gun violence directly. I would be terrified to live somewhere where they took your guns away, like in Australia. And I've had this conversation with a couple of Australian friends who live in Washington, D.C. Usually gun violence is portrayed or taken upon somebody who lives in an area that gun violence is prevalent. And if you're not in the area and you're not looking for trouble, you probably won't find it. It's very rare that you are affected by it unless you are involved in that kind of street crime. Does it other happen? Like obviously the news pushes the school shootings a lot. Does it happen? Yeah. Is it a very small percentage of people who are in school? Yes. They always also push the AR style rifle or assault rifle, and they always show pictures of these decked out black carbon fiber optics handhold guns, where in realistically, it's a lot of these guns were wood stock, and you wouldn't be able to differentiate them. And I see the gun violence in DC because I grew up in DC, and it was the murder capital of the U.S. So I think my senior year there was like 400 some odd murders, but it was mostly based on drugs, crime, robberies. So yeah, I mean, if we gave up our guns, I think we'd be in the same position as the government being able to have totalitarian control, like the UK or like Australia. So you take that with what you want.
Yes. So Hyder says gun violence in the USA is misreported. It's almost all gang activity. He says 40K deaths per year in the USA. Joe V does say need to stop gun control, work more on the mental health aspect. Gun crimes haven't really gone up as much as people think over the years. It is just publicized. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, at the end of the day, like they need hot button topics to get attention. So the way the news media works is the more views you get on the news channel, then the more money they can come in by charging more for commercial space. So the prime example of that is going to be our the Super Bowl. I think is the prime example. So I think his past year was like 1.5 or $2 million for a 30-second ad or something crazy. So because it's the most watched event in the US, they can charge a premium. Same thing for the news. If you can create a far left or a far right wing news media source and people focus on that and they tune in at 7, or 5 or whatever time they get off work, then they know they can charge a premium to make more money. So don't get it twisted about people who actually give a damn about us. Look on the backside of it, like I always say, like look deeper into it and see why are they pushing this narrative? Who are they focusing on? People who are going to watch and make them more money. That's all it stands for. And yes, Haidar, you're right. It does. AR does stand for the actual brand. Everybody who says it's a style of weapon, their AR and the AK are two completely different weapons. Just like my 9mm and my revolver are two very different weapons, or my crossbow versus my regular bow are two very different weapons used for different things. So
Yeah.
yes, there is gun violence in the U.S., but there's also a lot more people here, so it's not as active. And yes, you guys don't have school shootings in Australia, but the same token, you guys also don't have a voice, and the government's controlling you, and you always have to focus on you have your own political issues in your country. I just would be terrified of a totalitarian because of we gave up our freedom of guns.
Yeah. Thanks for subscribing, though, Philip. I'm glad you enjoyed your time here. Charles McEwen, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, he's always promoting me to the firehouses in his area, trying to get more subscribers. So thanks, man. Yes, let's see. Hyder says, Philip, consider the Australian shooting channel Mark and Sam after work. Okay.
But you guys, I mean, you look at places that took away guns, and I can't remember the stats on it. The UK, the crime rate for obviously gun violence went down drastically, but the stabbing and slicing deaths went up like 60 some odd percent. So like if people want to do bad things and do evil things, they're going to find a way to do it, whether it be hammers or knives or guns. The Hells Angels, when they used to carry around ball peen hammers on their motorcycle because it's a tool, it's not a weapon, but they used it as weapons. So like for conversation purposes, like, you can use anything for a weapon if you want to. I could fucking drown somebody in glue, like hat glue. I mean, it just depends on how evil people are. That's the best I can come up with the last second.
General says, I like this Trump change. It would just be a buzz for a while, weeding out those that panic, then rise the stock later. Good times. Hey, Janice is here, a new, hopefully, subscriber, but thanks for tuning in. We still have many illegals and a big gang problem. We have people in office that are taking up for criminals.
Political hot button. That's all it is. So I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and D.C. And there's a lot of illegals here, like a lot. And some of them I were friends with in high school. Like some of them I was friends. Like I went to one of my buddy's funerals about a year ago, who was an illegal, and he always tried to become legal. It's just there was a lot of obstacles for him to come in because of it. He was from El Salvador back when El Salvador was bad. Like I understand why he wanted to get away because it was a very rough country back then. Now it's not. So you go to major cities where there's organized crime, and it could be the MS-13, it could be the mafia, it could be whatever flavor you want. Um, that's what needs to be addressed because those gangs are going to be the biggest crime movers and creators that the U.S. will see. If we can get rid of those, it'll put a big dent in all types of crime, whether it be drugs or violence or human trafficking, prostitution, whatever your flavor is. I think that getting rid of a lot of those organized crime groups is going to make a big difference for the United citizens.
I did miss one. Charles says they count self-infliction shootings.
Yeah, suicide.
Yeah, and then Philip says we were locked down like crazy during COVID, and yeah,
I can tell you the traffic was great during COVID around the DC Beltway. There was nobody coming to work. It zip right in, zip right out of the city. I'm in a flight path. My firehouse now, I'm in a flight path for people coming in on Washington National. And there was like a plane once every 2 or 3 hours. And now there's like, a plane every 2 or 3 minutes. That's one thing I want to touch on. I actually was just reading about this. DC firefighters responded to the plane versus the helicopter crash in the Potomac River. It was absolutely horrendous. The stories I'm hearing from guys, it's going to affect their mental health forever. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. The ceiling height is about 150 to 200 feet in the Potomac River because when the planes take off from the Virginia side across DC, the helicopters are supposed to be in the DC side to give them the highest clearance possible. She was 100 to 150 feet, or I wouldn't say she was one of the pilots. They were about 100 to 150 feet above the ceiling for a helo. That caused the death of was like 68 people or 62 people, something like that. So stuff like that, like there's a lot of conspiracy theories. Same thing for, people when they say, the Pentagon was never hit by a plane. I have a lot of friends that were there. It was definitely hit by a plane. They watched it happen. They were in the building. I'm a big tinfoil hat guy. Like I love me a good conspiracy theory. I get wound up on it, but at the same time, like let's look at the truth of some of these things. Like there was planes that hit the building. There was planes that hit the Pentagon. There was a plane that got taken down up in Pennsylvania. I don't know why the pilot of the helicopter decided to fly into the flight path of a jet killing families. At the end of the day, though, like we need to really focus on like what's going to affect our future. Like don't pay attention to all this bullshit noise because it's going to distract us from having a better quality of life.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you. Like you pay attention to it to some extent because like you say, it's almost entertainment and it's not, I mean, these are tragedies, but I'm saying whereas you follow this news information more to do your memes or send me memes or you kind of, right. So it's not getting caught up in it. Like how some people are trying to pick sides or push back on the other side. They're listening to both sides, but they're just also finding like a form of kind of, I guess, takes their mind off of things in a sense. Yeah, we got some new subscribers. Thanks. People that are tuning in now, just letting you know, we actually started off the live more focusing on net worth. As far as net worth, is it worth something chasing for? And usually we start off with like maybe one main topic and we just kind of veer off into whatever
Yes, we do.
whatever the chat or comment section wants to maybe discuss for the day. So we kind of audience driven. So what we did start off with net worth. And so if you want to follow up and catch the replay of this and check out the beginning and hear more about that, but we have kind of veered off into some questions that the people in the audience kind of threw in there. So yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about before you bounce or?
No, I think the biggest takeaway from this conversation is, focus on your life, not the noise. Better yourself, better your position, better your families, because these elected officials and the people in the news, they're not going to give a dang about your future. It's up to you to push yourself forward and surround yourself with people who want to springboard you into the next phase of your life and help you out and help you achieve. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to end it. I think great final words to say. Yeah, so we'll do this again. Like I said, you're the most requested guest, so it's always fun. And thanks everyone for all these new people tuning in today. Hopefully you subscribed, have some fun, and we'll see you folks later this week.